And away we go. So, starting off this episode, I've sent a couple of Instagram Reels. Now, unlike the previous Instagram Reels I've sent to the lads in our podcast group chat, I had to screen record both of them because when I tried to pick the download option to save onto my camera roll, that option was not there for both of those Instagram Reels, which I sent to the lads in our podcast group chat. So I had to screen record them instead. So, yeah, that's just thought, I don't get why that option was not available. And I'm not gonna say, oh no, Instagram news are onto us. No, not news. Instagram knew they were onto us. Well, that's not the case. I think Instagram are too busy handling their own problems as it is. They shouldn't be worrying about groups of people taking content from their own platform and say, there's a hidden agenda. We're going to be controlled by massive wealthy elites. We're not there yet. We got a long way to go. Decades long way to go. So, in regards to the videos I've sent to the lads in the group chat, the first Instagram reel I've sent to the lads is in the UK. There is a brief caption that's embedded within the video in question. It reads, Scott Keggs filmed himself being confronted by a Tesco manager at the checkout for allegedly taking an unimproved route through the store aisles. Now, before I even play the audio for you, what do you mean, unimproved route through store aisles? Is it illegal to take a particular route through the store to just get what you want? Even if you knew exactly what you're getting, the store employees are like, nah, you can't do that, mate. That's just weird, mate. What the fudge? What the actual fudge? This is some goofball nonsense here. Anyway, with that laughter out the way, I'm now going to play the audio for you right now. Also, it's sped up, so I had to cut this down a bit.
The way we walked around, do you want to get things on? Do you want to refer to them shopping? Or do you just do you refer to them on your phone? Or do you just walk on one day and see what you like and what you want to buy? I'm going to purchase stuff and put it on a basket. Next day I'm shopping at me and I'm weird because we've gone to an aisle twice. But I went to the aisle to pick up bread on Tesco. And he's saying I'm weird. I've got it all on my coat. I don't think that's very suitable, to be honest. No, I put on his camera. No, you're doing that. And while I'm doing it, talking. We're doing rude. Are we doing rude, Paris? Supporting the manager, obviously you support your manager. How are we being rude? So,
well, before I get to the video in question, I will say, in defense to just store employees in general, I understand it is not easy dealing with customers that are prone to be difficult. Not that they would know that they would be difficult with the employees. I also know it's also difficult with preparing for unpredictable moments that, of course, although not to say that they're common, moments that no one knew they would see coming. I know it's not easy working with everyday people, mainly when it comes to dealing with people that will be prone to be difficult. I will say that. As for the video I just played, I have to ask, as stupidly funny as this sounds, what's so suspicious about customers taking a specific route across the store to get whatever products that the customer wants, and they know exactly what they want? They have done this before many times, and now the employees are like, yeah, I find that quite weird, mate. Well, yeah, I find your way of navigating the store quite suspicious. Is that really the worst that these employees have to deal with? Again, I know it's difficult dealing with customers that will be difficult. They could lash out. Not saying all customers are like that. It's going to happen to employees in any business, especially if they're dealing with everyday people when they have to socially interact with them directly. I at least know that kind of social difficulty, if it ever arises at any point. And again, back to the video in question, unimproved route through the story arcs. That's kind of a stretch. Now, of course, no one's gonna get in trouble for this. I don't believe there's any laws, last time I checked, where you can't take particular routes through the stores. I don't believe there are any laws prohibiting such actions like that. Nonetheless, people in the comment section of that YouTube, no, not YouTube, Instagram reel, they're going to go to the comments and immediately they will say these workers are a bunch of wankers. Or at least what people in Britain would say. I know for sure comment sections in videos like this, they will always take most of the time, they will take the side of the person that's recording the video. In the event that a certain particular section of that entire interaction is played where it is seen that the person recording the video is the victim. I'm not going against the person that had recorded that video. What I'm saying is, if people do not know the full context of these social media posts, then the immediate reaction for a lot of people on social media is they're going to side with the person recording the video. And this is from my experience. I've seen many videos like this during my own free time. Whilst I know particular aspects, like particular authorities aren't allowed to give such details like that unless absolutely necessary, authorities would only ask for IDs from people if it is suspected that the person being asked could be a threat. Not saying they are, they could be from the perspective of the authorities. Even there are some people that know key details about particular public interactions in public spaces, there will be people that will still side with the person being confronted by the authorities, or will side with the person that's doing the recording of that public interaction. I will say that. And this is a very important lesson to learn from this. Always do your research. You don't have to. It will save you time and stress if you knew exactly how these interactions go down and what procedures would be put in place, or how would it be carried out if situations like this were to happen in your life, and how would you deal with it? Again, people, you don't have to do this. It will save you time, stress, and maybe a little bit of money as well, if you knew exactly what the laws are, what the procedures are, and if you were in that situation yourself, how could you deal with it? And again, this is all from my experience. I've never, not often I get into interactions like in these YouTube reels, especially the one I just played. I have watched enough of these social media posts where people interact with members of staff of a business or authorities of any local authority, or possibly security guards in any given land area. I can't say I know everything. I at least understand the key details that makes the difference when it comes to how these situations turn out and how they pan out going forward. And yeah, that's about it for that front. Next social media post from Instagram Reels is a video in regards to the social media ban in Australia. And what you're about to hear in the audio I will play for you, I don't think it should surprise a lot of people, especially the lads that I do the podcast with. They wouldn't be surprised either. Nonetheless, I'll play the audio for you anyway.
Social media ban for under 16s hasn't worked. 4 months ago, Australia rolled out a nationwide social media ban for under 16s, positioned as this bold, world-first move to protect children online. Fast forward to now, and surprise, it's not working. According to a recent study, over 60% of kids who are already using these platforms are still using them, the same accounts and the same apps. The workarounds included VPNs, fake birthdays, using somebody else's face for verification. The reality is most kids didn't even need the clever workarounds because the systems designed to stop them simply didn't. Over half of the kids said the platforms took no action at all. So you've got a law that does literally nothing and a ban that's affecting more adults than it is kids. I don't know how many times I can repeat myself in these videos before I give up on the messaging. The only way that this kind of ban actually works is if you go much, much further. You get full ID verification, you get device level restrictions, you turn every login into a checkpoint. And boy, would that suck, because when this doesn't work, and it's not, the next step won't be, well, maybe this was the wrong approach. It'll be, we need stronger measures, more verification, more tracking, and obviously more oversight. Meanwhile, the actual solution, the really boring one, gets ignored because education, teaching kids how to use the internet safely, teaching parents how to manage it, building digital literacy instead of trying to brute force behavior with legislation is inherently boring. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes investment, and it doesn't generate headlines.
Well said. Very well said. And I think that's the issue. Even if there are ways to solve problems like children using the internet, social media platforms, the very people in power that are proposing legislation in regards to internet usage, they barely know diddly squat about what the internet is like and how people use social media. And even when problems that's going on in Australia with the social media ban is now inevitably clear, as seen in the social media post which I just played a few moments ago, other countries that are considering implementing a similar social media ban for under 16s, under 15s, or anyone that's not of legal age, those countries are going to make these proposals and pass them into law anyway. And by the time these said proposals or policies and legislature is then put into law, give it a few months, then those countries in question will now go through the same problems and have to address the same concerns like Australia is going through right now. Even when the problems regarding the social media ban is clear, other countries around the world, their governments are still going to pass this legislation into law anyway. And only when, after a few months, the law of social media ban is put in place, these countries will learn the hard way about what it really means to regulate not just social media platforms, but also to regulate what goes on the internet. Whilst a lot of the internet is purely decentralized, that's not going to stop governments around the world passing laws to combat whatever problems the politicians in chambers and presidential palaces, homes, whatever, to say, whatever these problems are, we're going to address them. It's not going to be effective, but we'll do it anyway. Although it may not go exactly like that. Nonetheless, the dedication for protecting the children from harms of social media, whilst it is still strong, the execution of passing these legislations into law is what's causing a lot of fuss. Yes, I get that we need to ensure the safety and protection of children from what they see online. How people are going about it seems like they barely know what the heck they're doing. And even though there are people that do know what the internet is like and the complications of technology, they're still going to go along with the social media ban as a way to regulate and monitor the kinds of people that are using these social media platforms, or just any platform, where you will certainly see content which children should not be seeing at all. It's not that easy to understand the complexities of the internet, the moderation of social media platforms, as well as the effectiveness of said policies and laws regarding social media use will serve the purpose that is intended to serve. Only time will tell if there are lessons to be learnt from the social media ban. What problems could other countries learn from Australia and other subsequent countries who aim to pass similar legislation relating to social media bans for minors. Next, I've sent a screenshot of an Instagram post by BMT, which shows a picture of P. Diddy and his son, King Combs, kissing his father, and King Combs in that picture is a grown man, by the way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. There are two pieces of Twitter X posts showed within that Instagram post. A Twitter X post by King Combs reads, "My daddy was not in no Epstein files. Meanwhile, these celebs are roaming free while being in them. Sick world. Facepalm and hand emoji." And then another Twitter X post by 50 Cent responded saying, "Motherfucker, your dad was not in the files because he was creating his own files!" Exclamation mark. What a comeback. And I replied to it directly with 2 laughing emojis because it was that funny. And looking, even in the next few years, I go back to it and look at it, I'm still gonna laugh. That's a good comeback. Very well said, 50 Cent. Risk11 responded saying, "Diddy weird guy." Eric then responded with, "They all are. That's why people call it Holly Weird. All of them are rich weirdos." And then I replied to Eric saying, "And it won't be long until the entertainment and media industries become more competitive and prevalent in other countries or even cities." And then Eric responded with the 100 emoji to that response I made. And it's true. And I mostly say this is true because in the last episode of the podcast, I showed that I'm not sure if it was. Yeah, in the last episode of either this podcast or the other podcast that I run, I have sent to the Project Bits team group chat on Discord about how social media as it is now is dying and people are gearing towards interest media, as well as cities and administrative states or national subdivisions around the world are considering establishing their own private funds, which will go towards facilitating and providing job opportunities for local media industries in said cities and or states in the United States. And when these cities and states or national subdivisions start establishing their own dedicated media funds to prop up their local media industry, sooner or later, we will start to see more shows, movies, and other media-related content being produced within our own countries, or even in our own neighborhoods. We won't know it until your own community decides to set up their own private media fund to attract media-related jobs into local communities and produce movies, shows with local people, and possibly bring in foreign studios to produce content of their own in said communities, which, as of now, there isn't much going on. Slowly but surely, a time like that will come. But how does this tie back into P. Diddy making his own files related to the Epstein files with his own set of wild party guests, etc.? Eventually, there will come a point where the most prominent, notable, and the biggest movie stars, celebrities, not for long, they will not be going to Los Angeles and maybe New York and London to get the high-end acting opportunities. They could go to Manchester, Sao Paulo, Paris, Madrid, Milan, Rome, Munich, Berlin, Stockholm, Moscow, Tokyo, all these major cities around the world. If they have enough political will and enough funds to establish their own private media funding, or just get started with a private media fund by private investors, then surely we could start to see more content like shows, movies, documentaries that will be produced in cities that are also as much of a world's tourist destination as LA is the media capital of the United States. It's going to happen, and I know for sure where I'm from, Manchester. They've got their heels on the ground with the media industry quite early on, a few years ago, They started building studios for BBC, ITV, and other independent studio facilities where many shows, movies within the UK can be produced outside of London. Now, of course, London still produces a lot of media for the UK. Manchester is on the rise. And I remember when I watch BBC Breakfast Show with my dad every morning, the studio where BBC Breakfast Show is filmed is in the same city as where I'm from. Well, specifically, that's filmed in Salford. Nonetheless, as much Salford is as a separate city from the city of Manchester, it's still within the Greater Manchester Economical Region. I can get a tram ride from where I am right now to Media City, UK, somewhere in Salford, and I could just rock up at a studio and just do whatever media work for the UK that needs to be done. Well, if I called in for that is, there still has to be a procedure for auditions, people allocating parts to do jobs of different projects and so on. Sure, there's still a procedure nonetheless. Don't think it'll be that easy. It's not. But I digress. So, back to P. Diddy. Creating his own files, as 50 Cent once said. Good comeback. Very great comeback. Hilarious, I'd say. And yeah, that's all I have to say. And that is all of the stuff that me and the lads have sent the group chat, our podcast group chat, as of the last time I recorded a podcast episode. With that all being said, let's get right into the news. The rest of the news. Researchers reclassified 300-million-year-old octopus fossil as nautiloid relative. I don't know what any of those words mean, but oh boy, they sound interesting. On Wednesday, April 8th, 2026, researchers published findings in the Proceedings of the Royal Society reclassifying the 300-million-year-old fossil Fossapia as a nautiloid relative rather than an octopus. Originally discovered in Illinois and described in 2000, scientists interpreted the fossil's decayed features as evidence of an octopus, pushing the known origin of octopuses back by at least 150 million years. Thomas Clements and his team used synchrotron imaging to uncover a radula with at least 11 teeth, which matched those of the nautiloid Paleocadmus rather than octopuses, which typically have 7 or 9. This reclassification removes Fossapia from the Guinness Book and World Records as the oldest octopus, while extending the nautiloid soft tissue record back by around 220 million years. The discovery redraws the cephalopod family tree, suggesting octopuses appeared much later than during the Jurassic period, while the split between octopuses and their 10-armed relatives occurred in the Mesozoic era. That's a lot to get into. And in any archaeological research and findings, every week, actually no, every month, if not every week, there's always going to be new discoveries or revelations of previous discoveries that we didn't know were even reality. And yet here we are. It is what it is, it was what it was, so on and so forth. I don't have much to say on this story. It is interesting nonetheless. Even I don't know half of the crap that's been said. It was quite the information, nourishment, that I didn't think I would need. Amy Winehouse's father loses court battle over auction items. On Monday, Deputy High Court Judge Sarah Clark KC dismissed Mitch Winehouse's claim against his late daughter Amy Winehouse's friends Naomi Parry and Catronia Gourlay over items sold at United States auctions in 2021 and 2023. Acting as estate administrator, Winehouse alleged the two women deliberately concealed and profited from selling 155 personal items, including cards from Adele and Mark Ronson, a Fendi bracelet, and bullet pumps, claiming court action was his only means of obtaining answers. Judge Clark found evidence showed Amy Winehouse routinely gifted clothing to close friends and possessed far more items than she could ever wear, use, or store, highlighting her extraordinary generosity was entirely in keeping with her character. Following the ruling, Parry stated the High Court had cleared her name unequivocally and in full after years of deeply damaging allegations, emphasizing the claim has failed entirely and should never have been brought. Judge Clark characterized Mitch Winehouse as an unreliable witness who pursued the claim without checking until shortly before trial whether he had a valid case, noting he likes to dominate people and situations. It's now, of course, I have thoughts. It's complicated. The story in question is very complicated. Amy Winehouse, while she's alive, had been generous with what she's given to other people, and on the other hand, there were instances that the friends of Amy Winehouse had auctioned these personal items off in the United States and made a substantial amount of money out of them. Unless Amy Winehouse herself is still alive today, it is not clear, as well as being very difficult to get an understanding in regards to how this particular situation could have panned out. And even Parry has argued that this case should not have happened in the first place. Well, either way, the damage has been done. At least Parry and her other friend, Gourlay, well, they can continue living their lives how they were living their lives before. Of course, there will be people that will be mad at Parry and Gourlay for auctioning off the personal items in the United States. It has to be asked, why now is there a court case? Even it's to be argued that it shouldn't have happened to begin with. Why is there a court case regarding anything related to Amy Winehouse or her possessions are being brought up now? And of course, people will say the answer is obvious. And again, back to the fact that this case should not have been brought up to begin with, knowing that there's some kind of misunderstanding in defense of Parry and Gourlay. And again, if Amy Winehouse is alive right now, she could have made it clear to the court to say, these are my friends, and I have chosen to give these items away to them as gifts. Of course, there is no way to bring people back from the dead to testify and make their arguments, so we'll have to leave it at that. I hope there is more to say to this. I hope there's more information regarding to this. If not, then that is as much information for the story that we could get. Greenpeace activists staged demonstration at Trump Turnberry Golf Course in Scotland. On Monday, Greenpeace activists installed 6 mock wind turbines on the 4th hole green at Trump Turnberry Golf Club in Ayrshire, displaying a sign reading "Choose Wind, Dump Trump" before removing them as golfers arrived. Trump's recent social media post advocating for North Sea oil extraction prompted the demonstration. He urged Britain to "drill baby drill" while declaring "no more windmills" last week. Greenpeace cited polling showing 65% of Scots opposed Trump's call for increased oil and gas extraction. Preferring renewable energy, the group claims wind and solar farms have saved the UK £7 million daily since the Ukraine war began. Polling by Survation from April 2nd to April 10th revealed that 48% of Scots believe renewable energy is the best way to cut energy bills, while just 13% backed Further oil and gas extraction. Climate campaigner Lily Rose Ellis with Greenpeace asserts that clean energy independence of the Strait of Hormuz or Russian pipelines boosts security, stating the renewables Trump hates are the best insurance policy against the chaos he's unleashed. I will say, in regards to the latter, what Lily Rose Ellis said, that's a good point. No, I'm not saying we should replace oil and gas. I will say there has to be other energy alternatives, even if it's using renewables. If it generates enough power for the nation of the United Kingdom, not just Scotland, then what is there to complain about? Of course, Risk, if he was on here right now, he will go along with the lines of climate change is a hoax, it's a scam, you've been sold a lie, this agenda narratives as a way to peer pressure, so on and so forth. I'm not sure exactly what Risk would say, but I know those are the thoughts Risk 11 has in regards to climate change. He doesn't buy into any of that. Then again, I will say, if there isn't oil or gas to be used to generate energy, then how are you going to generate energy? Biomass? Hydro? Nuclear power? There has to be other sources of energy being produced. You can't just rely on oil and gas forever. And I will say, even when people do make the argument that renewable energy does generate enough energy for local communities in Scotland and potentially the rest of the UK, there will be people that will make efforts to drill the ground to extract whatever oil reserves are left anyway. No matter how much of a positive engagement or argument you have in support for renewable energy, there will be people that's going to extract oil from the ground, wherever that oil is, and set up extraction plants from there. That will still happen, even if a majority of energy that's being created and generated in Scotland or anywhere in the world comes from renewable energy. Wind power, solar power, hydropower, biomass, and whatever fuel source is yet to exist. People are still going to extract oil, whatever is left from the ground, anyway. And one more thing to end off with this exact story about Greenpeace activists. I find it quite funny. Choose wind, dump Trump. That's clever. That's very clever. I'll give them that. Trump the dump. That's just me. That's just me. If everyone's going to use that, fair play, fair play. It's clever. Choose wind, dump Trump. Yeah, that's going to stick in people's heads for a very long time. Well, if they know about it, of course. I don't sure who would be made aware of this story. I know climate activists will be made aware of it. But other than that, who else? Otherwise, that sign at Turnberry Golf Club, that's going to live on for a very long time. Very clever play on words. I'll give Greenpeace that. 6 crew still missing after overturned ship that disappeared after typhoon is found near Saipan on Saturday. A Coast Guard air station, Barbers Point HC-130 Hercules crew sighted an overturned vessel matching the description of the missing 145-foot cargo ship. Mariana, about 34 nautical miles northeast of Pagan, the Mariana reported its starboard engine failed on Wednesday as Typhoon Sinlaku brought fierce winds and rain to the region, prompting the Coast Guard to lose contact with the 6 crew members on Thursday. A U.S. Navy Boeing P-8A Poseidon crew, a Coast Guard cutter, and a Japan Coast Guard aircrew are assisting search efforts after an earlier HC-130 flight returned to Guam due to heavy winds. Coast Guard officials in Honolulu are gathering information to confirm whether the overturned is the Mariana, while the agency has not yet determined the nationalities of the 6 missing crew members. Anyone with information regarding the vessel could contact the Coast Guard on VHF FM Channel 16, or call the Joint Rescue Coordination Center, Honolulu, at 1-800-331-6176 to assist search efforts. Well, it's useful to have that contact in case anyone found anything in the Pacific. Really makes the search that a whole lot easier. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm actually being for real. We should always have emergency services put in place and contact details. So that way, if anyone does find anything, the 6 crew members of the Mariana, they can be rescued effectively and efficiently as soon as possible. What I will say, just to end the story, I hope those 6 crew members are in good health, there aren't many injuries, if any, and they return safely back home to the countries which they are from. Google in talks with Marvell to build new AI chips. The information reports. And it's Marvel with 2 L's, not 1. So there's a clarification. Google is in talks with Marvell Technology to develop 2 new chips for running AI models, according to the information. One is a memory processing unit, the other is a new tensor processing unit built specifically for inference. The strategy focuses on diversification rather than substitution, allowing Google to avoid depending on a singular supplier, adding Marvell to a supply chain that already includes Broadcom and media tech, reduces pricing and supply risk. Inference has become the dominant compute cost as AI products reach hundreds of millions of users. Unlike training, which is a one-time event, inference runs continuously, scaling costs with user demand. For Marvell, a successful contract would validate its position as a top custom AI chip designer. Marvell's stock rallied approximately 50% year to date, with a 30% gain in April following the talks. The custom ASIC market is projected to grow 45% in 2026, reach $118 billion by 2033. Google aims to build millions of Ironwood TPU units this year to meet demands in this expanding sector. Well, got to give credit where credit's due for Google trying to find an additional supplier, so that way they're not relying on one person or one company to get a lot of their technology. It's important that every business and organization to balance their options in case one supplier or partner goes bust. There are problems, there's limitations in the world today. I'll give Google credit for negotiating talks to establish alternative suppliers to not just to reduce the costs of what they're getting now, also to provide other alternative suppliers in case one of them, well, something happens to them that gets in the way of the plans. Whatever plans that is honestly, I don't know what the plans are. Either way, it's good to have some form of diversification. It's good to have alternative options in case problems arise. And yeah, nothing else. I have nothing else to add to this, so I will leave it at that. Well done, Google, as the company that you are that nobody seems to respect all that much anymore. You're still standing your ground. You're still going to continue to exist for the next few years. Yeah, that negotiation with Marvell Technology, it does not fall short. Google will continue in the next few years. More so with this negotiation. That is it for the episode.